3 years. That's how long the consequence program had been running. 216 facilities, 49 species, thousands of juveniles. And one question that had been building since the beginning, that every delegate, every general, every diplomat had been too polite or too afraid to ask directly. Until today. A Vael elder stood before the full council chamber and asked it plainly. What happens when a human raises a generation that thinks like a human? What have you done to our children? The chamber went silent. Lena Carter sat very still. Because it was a good question. And she wasn't sure she had the answer.
3 years changed everything. And nothing. The program ran itself now. Mostly. Carr managed intake assessment across 12 facilities. Veshka's behavioral framework had been adopted as standard methodology by 41 independent research institutions. Roan had trained 63 program associates across 19 species, who each ran their own placement clusters. Sev, the Vael juvenile who had once existed in a world without personal consequence, now led the program's philosophical development division. A division that hadn't existed 18 months ago because nobody had known it was needed until Sev built it. Lena had 4 meetings today. She used to have 40. She sat in her office, smaller than her title warranted, deliberately, and reviewed the morning briefing. 216 active cases, 47 pending assessments, 3 crisis flags requiring senior review. Standard Tuesday. Her door opened without a knock. She didn't look up. Only one person did that. Carr, she said. There's a council session, he said. Unscheduled. Full attendance requested. Now she looked up. Unscheduled full council sessions meant one of 2 things: emergency or confrontation. Carr's expression told her which one. Who called it? Elder Vaen of the Vael Continuity Council, he said. He arrived this morning with a delegation of 14. Lena set down her briefing. The Vael, the species with no framework for personal consequence, until Sev had quietly built one from the inside. The species whose entire cultural philosophy was built on the idea that individuals were vessels, not agents. The species whose children were now, 3 years into the program, beginning to think very differently. When? She asked. 1 hour, Carr said. He paused at the door. Lena? Unusual. He almost never used her name. He isn't wrong to ask. She looked at him. I know, she said.
Elder Vaen was 340 years old. Tall had briefed Lena on Vael biology. They aged slowly, accumulated experience across centuries, and carried their culture not in documents, but in memory. What a Vael elder remembered was what the species knew. Vaen remembered a time before the program. He stood in the council chamber with the stillness of someone who had learned patience across 3 centuries, and looked at Lena Carter the way she imagined he looked at everything, with complete attention and no particular hurry. You have been changing our children, he said. Not an accusation, a statement that required response. The program works with children who are struggling, Lena said carefully. We don't change them. We give them tools. Sev, Vaen said. 1 word. Just the name. Yes, Lena said. I knew Sev before the program, Vaen said. He was a vessel, moved by forces, unmoved by choice. This is the Vael way. Not imposed, not cruel. Simply how we understand existence. He paused. Sev now believes he is an agent, that his choices originate within himself, that he is responsible for what he does. Yes, Lena said again. This is not the Vael way. The chamber was very quiet. No, Lena agreed. It isn't. Vaen studied her. You do not apologize. No, she said, because Sev is not broken. He is not lost. He is different than he was, but he is not suffering. He is not Vael, Valeen said quietly. Not entirely. The words landed heavily. Lena sat with them, because they were true.
The chamber waited for Lena to respond. She didn't. Instead, she looked toward the back of the room. "Sev," she said. He stood. He had been sitting quietly in the observers section, which everyone had noticed and nobody had mentioned. 3 years of the program had not changed his stillness. It had changed what the stillness meant. He walked to the presentation position, faced Elder Vaen directly. "I know what I was," Sev said. "I remember it clearly. The world moved through me. Nothing originated here." He touched his chest once, a gesture Lena had never seen a Vael make. "I did not choose. I was chosen by forces I could not name." Vaen watched him without expression. "I also know what I am now," Sev said. "I notice things. I act on what I notice. I am responsible for what I do with what I see." A pause. "This is different from what you taught me. I know that." "Then you understand my concern?" Vaen said. "Yes," Sev said. "And I want to ask you something." The elder waited. "In 340 years, Sev said carefully, has the Vael way produced anyone who sat in a room for 11 days watching quietly and then stood up and corrected an error because they could see it and therefore felt responsible for it?" Silence. "That is what I did," Sev said. 3 years ago. A juvenile who should not have been reassigned stayed in his placement because I noticed and acted." He looked at Vaen steadily. "Under the old framework, what force would have moved me to do that?" The chamber was completely still. Vaen did not answer immediately. Which was, Lena realized, itself an answer. The recess lasted 40 minutes. Lena spent it in the corridor. Same corridor, same bench, same quiet that had become the place where the real conversations happened. Carr sat beside her. Veshka stood at the viewport. Rune sat on the floor. He still did that sometimes. The low-to-ground stillness he'd used with the Dravok juvenile years ago, now just part of how he thought. Sev stood apart, which was also how he thought. "He's not wrong," Lena said finally. "No," Carr agreed. "The program changes children, not just their behavior, their fundamental framework for understanding themselves." She looked at her hands. "We never advertised that. We said we gave them tools." "Tools change the person using them," Veshka said without turning from the viewport. "You knew that." "Yes," Lena said. "Did you think it was wrong?" Rune asked from the floor. Long pause. "No," Lena said honestly. "But thinking something is right doesn't mean the people affected don't get to ask questions about it." Sev spoke quietly from where he stood. "He came here to ask if his grandchildren will still be Vael." Everyone was quiet. "Will they?" Carr asked. Lena thought about Sev, still and watchful and precise, with a gesture she'd never seen a Vael make, touching his own chest to indicate internal origin. Not fully Vael, not fully anything else. Something new. "I don't know," she said. It was the most honest thing she'd said in 3 years. The elder returned to the chamber alone. His delegation remained outside, which told Lena this next part was personal, not political. Vaen sat across from her. Not at the formal presentation positions, at a small table near the chamber's side entrance. The kind of seating that said, "This is a conversation, not a proceeding." "I have a great-granddaughter in your program," he said. "Liz. She has been placed for 8 months." Lena knew the file. She knew all the files. "She is doing well," Lena said. "I visited her last month," Vaen said. "She told me something that I have been thinking about since." He paused in the way of someone choosing words across 3 centuries of experience. "She told me that she had made a mistake in her placement work
and had corrected it herself before anyone noticed. And that she felt... He stopped. She used a word I have heard humans use, but never understood in Vael context. Lena waited. Proud, Vaen said. She said she felt proud. The word sat between them. In the Vael framework, he continued, pride is not possible. Pride requires believing the self originated the action. We do not believe this. He looked at Lena. Liz believes this now. Yes, Lena said quietly. She was smiling when she told me, Vaen said. Silence. I came here to ask what you have done to our children, he said. I have been asking the wrong question. Lena looked at him. The question is not what you have done, he said slowly. The question is, what do we do now? With children who are becoming something the galaxy has not seen before. He paused. Something that feels proud of itself. He looked at Lena with 340 years of careful attention. I think, he said quietly, that I need to understand this better before I oppose it. She told them the truth that evening. Not the council, her team. Kar, Veshka, Rune, Sev. The people who had built this with her and deserved to hear it directly. The program was never just behavioral adjustment, she said. I knew that from the beginning. You can't teach consequence without teaching agency. You can't teach agency without changing how someone understands themselves. She looked at all of them. I told the council we gave children tools. That was true and incomplete. You gave them a human framework, Kar said. Parts of it, Lena said. The parts I thought were universal. Consequence, agency, responsibility. She paused. I still think they are universal. But universal doesn't mean identical across every culture. Sev's agency looks different from Kar's. Kar's looks different from Rune's. Different from human, Veshka said. Yes, Lena said. And that's right. That's what should have happened. She looked at Sev. You're not a human who happens to be Vael. You're something new. Sev considered this for a long moment. Liz felt proud, he said. I know. I would like to meet her, he said. I think I understand something about what that felt like for her. The first time. Lena looked at him. 3 years ago, he had sat in a workspace for 11 days watching quietly. Now, he was running a philosophical development division and asking to mentor a Vael child through the experience of feeling proud for the first time. I'll arrange it, she said. The council session reconvened the following morning. Elder Vaen presented a proposal, not an objection, a Vael cultural integration framework, a process by which program methodology would be reviewed in partnership with Vael cultural advisors to ensure that agency and consequence were introduced in ways that complemented rather than replaced existing cultural identity. Not a shutdown, not a restriction, a collaboration. Lena read the proposal 3 times. It was better than anything her team had designed. She said so directly. Vaen looked at her with something that might have been 3 centuries of amusement. We have been thinking about identity and continuity for a very long time, he said. We have useful perspectives. Yes, Lena said. You do. The vote passed unanimously. Afterward, Lena stood in the corridor, same bench, same quiet, and sat alone for a while. Rex found her there. He still did that sometimes, appeared when things had shifted, said little, stood in the particular way of someone who understood more than they expressed. Vaen's framework, he said. You didn't expect it. No, Lena said. You thought he came to end the program. Yes. Instead, he improved it? Lena looked at the corridor, The one that had seen 4 parts of a story she hadn't planned, built by 3 cubs who'd become something she hadn't anticipated, and a program that kept becoming more than she designed. That's what happens, she said quietly. When you give people the tools and trust them to build something better than you imagined. Rex was quiet for a moment. Then, is there a part 6? Lena almost laughed. Ask Carr, she said. It's his program now. Somewhere across 216 facilities, a Vael child felt proud for the first time. And in a corridor outside a council chamber, a human sat quietly. Not directing, not leading, just watching what she'd started become something the galaxy had never seen before.